From We Are Spectacular, this is a Spectacular Marketing Podcast. A podcast about everything brand, marketing, digital and social for the food and drink industry and beyond. This week, I'm not actually out and about anywhere. I'm in the middle of podcast recording sessions. So today we've managed to actually squeeze in 3 in a row. So yeah, slightly wiped after being all talked out, which will be a surprise to some of you maybe. So today we actually got a huge dose of inspiration, and that was from Mark Pitcher, who is the founder of an amazing coaching company, personal development for business company called Smash the Box. And you can find them at smashthebox.me, and it's a brand new website for Mark. And what he's wanting to do is help people, companies, schools, universities find their real purpose in life, with the aim of them having a more fulfilled life. So whether you're in a job that you're not quite sure you should be in, there's something off the side that you'd rather be doing, maybe in your personal life as well, you're not feeling as fulfilled as you might want to be, listening to the podcast and also reaching out and talking to Mark could really be of big help. So today we went through his journey and what made him take the leap of faith to then start up on his own and be what he wanted to be and do what he always wanted to do, which was helping people, and by helping lots of people will hopefully have an impact on the world and will help him make his mark. So we covered things like purpose. We also talked about coaching and mentoring sessions, what that involves and what that means. We also talked about advice and speaking your truth. A really interesting point we touched on as well was spirituality. Not often talked about in business, but very interesting all the same. And a huge theme for me was all about being curious about the people that are magnetic, energetic and successful in their own way in life, and how you could maybe start being a bit more connected with them. So I hope you enjoy the podcast. It was an absolute shot in the arm for me of energy, information and wisdom. I hope you feel that way too. It gives me the most amount of pleasure ever to have the wonderful, amazing and inspirational Mark Pitcher in my company today. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
This is going to be easy.
What an intro.
Yeah. Well, I just think, a lot of the time we talk about radiators and drains and, that old kind of cliche, but I think, you've almost got this nuclear fission reaction coming off of you in terms of, positive vibes, positive energy, and anytime I ever catch up with you, I feel better for it. So it's fantastic, really exciting. And Mark, for those of you who don't know, is an amazing coach and speaker. So really recommend checking out his stuff online, which we'll put in the podcast notes. But Mark's also the founder of an amazing personal development business company called Smash the Box. And congratulations on your new website.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Went live today.
Was having a real good look last night. So sort of looking at it and just wondering how many takes it took to do that great video. I was wanting some bloopers.
You've been there and done it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
A few, yeah.
So again, we'll put some photos up, but Mark has the most incredible shirt I've ever seen on. I really pride myself on some noisy shirts, but yeah, this is Spinal Tap stuff up to 11. So if you can't feel it through the sound waves, we'll get it into your eyeballs when the episode goes out. So yeah, so I guess we've known each other 7 years maybe from a fourth event way back.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years, I think, probably, and a lot better in the last 12 months.
Definitely.
Probably. Yeah, absolutely.
So we've had some good catch-ups, and I think when you're running your own business, it can be quite lonely, So I think catching up with someone that's got positive energy, good advice, mentoring skills, can just help you see the wood from the trees, I think, has been such a great thing and a great help to me. So a massive thanks on that, and we'll come on to some of your great advice that you gave me sort of later on. So in terms of, you don't just wake up one morning and be coach and inspirational speaker extraordinaire. So apart from being plugged into the Matrix and downloading all the wisdom, how in the hell did you get here? What
How
happened?
did I get here?
Yeah.
It's a great question. So I'll give you the short version. I mean, if I took you back, say 5 years, I guess I represented what some people would call success in terms of business. You know, I was successful in business. I had a great loving family. I had, life was pretty good, and I've always had a passion for people. I think I'll say that first. I've always had a passion for people. I find myself gravitating towards helping people. And if you'd asked me, if you give me a glass of wine 5 years ago, and in fact, this was a conversation I had with a friend around that time. He said, "What do you really, really want to do, Mark?" And if you asked me that 5 years ago, I'd say, "Well, I want to help people. I want to change the world, but I want to help people. I want to inspire people." Great. Bit fuzzy, bit vague, great intent, but how do you do that? You know? And there I was working in business, and life was pretty good, and as I said, but then on the 6th of July 2016, I woke up one morning to the news that my eldest son Charlie had taken his own life, and I don't have to sort of explain how seismic that was, and how traumatic that was, and life completely stopped. And I am very, very blessed to have some great people in my life, not only a loving family, but my former CEO, a great guy called Ben Hood, gave me all the time and space I needed to sort of to deal with that, I guess. And when I came out of my shock, I made two very early decisions. And some of this might sound a bit harsh, but I believe, life is about choice. And I made a choice. And the two decisions I made one was I was not going to become a victim of this.
That was just running through my head, actually. Yeah, I think that's a really wise thing to have figured out.
Yeah, and I say this with all due respect, because I respect the hell out of anybody's grief and,
of course,
anyone's decisions they make. Yeah. And, life can be tough. But I decided I was not going to become a victim of it. I wasn't going to let it define me. And I guess I felt a sense of responsibility to my family to find some positivity and find some, show the way forward. And I also the second decision I made was that I needed to do a great work. I needed to undertake a great work, to do something really purposeful that brought some positive meaning to Charlie's life. My son was called Charlie. And sort of fast forward, I was already qualifying as a coach at that time. That was something I was doing anyway.
And how were you doing that? Is there a specific course or accreditation that you go for, or is there various ones?
Yeah, there's various ones, and I just picked one. I mean, I was still working in business at the time, but I thought this is something. I again, going back to that sort of fuzzy, I want to help people. Had all the passion, had all the energy, I was actually kind of mentoring and helping a lot of friends and colleagues on their journeys. Yeah. Anyway, by being old.
Just naturally, I think either you're a giver or a taker, and you're a giver.
I think you're right, and then I found this thing. I think it popped up on LinkedIn saying, life coaching, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've heard of that, and in short, it brought a science and a structure to all my passion and energy, and a lot of it's based in positive psychology, modern psychology, and off I went, and I undertook it at the same time quite an intensive speakers academy, and which is something I'm very passionate about. I enjoy speaking, and off I went, and fast forward 12 months on, I started Smash the Box, and with the aim of helping people improve their lives, find fulfilment, using Charlie's probably biggest attribute was his generosity of spirit. He was the kid that would pick his mates up from the station at 1 a.m. or lend them 30 quid, and I thought, how can I take that and use that to good effect? Yeah. So I'm not a religious person, but if I help somebody and do something for somebody, I will look up and give it the old wink and say, we're doing it together. So. That's
great. And I think, I think it's amazing that you've chosen this positive path, and such great things are going to come. So every person you touch and help is part of that,
Yeah.
sort of tribute, legacy, memory, all these great things. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So in terms of Smash the Box then, so new website's there, it's banging. It was just like so concise, so sure what it is, video led as well, which is just great to see, just fantastic. So in terms of Smash the Box then, what's its thing? How would you describe it?
How would I describe it? I describe it as a personal development business with coaching and mentoring at its heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I describe it. It's a very interesting thing around identity and how you describe yourself. And I've been on a journey with that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on the sort of, I'm a life coach, I'm a business mentor, I'm a speaker, and I'm all of those things.
Yeah.
But at its heart, that's what it does. So it's a place that people can come, and it might be that you receive a talk from me live. It might be that you listen to a podcast. It might be that you're coached by me, or it might be you just like the quotes on the page.
Yeah.
You get your little email quote every day, and that's it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And that it's a place that people can come to get inspiration.
Great. So you're almost creating this sort of a community and be a content hub then.
Yeah.
And it seems like selflessly giving that as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. That I think it's very important to know whenever you start out on anything, what do you want? To know what you want. And when I distill it all down, I want two things. I want legacy. I want legacy for me. I've already talked about Charlie as well, for Charlie. And that means I'm prepared to spend a disproportionate amount of my time doing stuff that doesn't earn me any immediate income. So I do, I broadcast on social media for free. I talk in schools and colleges for free. That will always be free. There will always be a proportion of what I do for free, always, because that for me, I'm removing barriers by doing that. There's a lot of people out there that can't afford coaching, and I think coaching, wouldn't it be great if coaching was on the NHS? I envisage a day when you can walk into a doctor and he'll say, what's wrong? And you say, nothing, I feel good. But I want to be even better, and I'm struggling with some inspiration. And they go, great, we've got a great coach for you.
Yeah.
And, how great would that be? So I'm just doing my little bit to sort of, for the universe. But at the same time, I also want financial freedom for my family, to a point.
Yeah.
To a point. I only need so much. So, it's so legacy sounds wonderful, but you've got to pay bills. I've got kids, so I try and balance the two. And I'm, and get what feels right, and that's why sometimes I will do something. And one lady's up in Newcastle who has a son who's got some learning difficulties and came to me and wanted to sort of, I think I was a bit of a left field option for her. She'd been through lots of counselling and different things that hadn't worked, and she can't afford one-to-one coaching.
Yeah.
So I'll say, right, you get the train fare to London, we'll do it. And that's part of, I say that not to show off, but I say that as an example of that feels right.
Yes.
That feels right to do. That's the legacy.
Yeah.
Because it's a great way to move through the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's, even thinking about, mental health things and all that, it's like, all the rich have got therapists and all the poor are just getting given drugs or, beta blockers or whatever,
Right.
So I think that helping people be more secure and be better and feel better in their lives in general, that's an interesting point, that you go into the doctor's surgery for coaching. I think that could be quite a day.
How to make yourself even better.
There you go. Yeah. That could be your manifesto for running for PM.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
MP for PM.
MP,
So then thinking about day one. So you've given up your old, not quite so corporate, but business life. And what the heck? What happened?
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
On day one, I mean. Day one, it's a big adjustment. I think it's a big shift going from a very social, you talk about working for yourself being lonely, very social environment, and suddenly my commute is down the stairs to the dining room table, and day one, do you know what? The interesting thing about starting my own business is I was given, again, with lots of advice and help at the beginning, and people giving me frameworks for business plans and setting yourself financial targets, and all very sensible and all very with the right intentions. I ripped it all up after about 2 weeks, and there's a guy I follow, well, you know him, Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm a big fan of, and I decided to sort of burn my boats and base my whole strategy around 4 words, which is give, ask. And my experience in business is that, and life, I guess, is that too many people either don't give, either it's all, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? What can I get from this? Here's a free newsletter. Now, do you want to buy our stuff? That's the old school, which probably, those days are gone. Then there's the give and expect. I'm going to do you a favor. I gave you 3 leads. Where's mine? Yeah. That whole, which to me is manipulation. Yeah. It's a form of manipulation. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to give, but then there's what the real true essence of giving, which is where you just don't expect anything back. Yeah. And, I get a little bit altruistic now, but I do believe that the universe pays you back. Yeah. There's a book written not long ago. A lot of people seen. There's a film, I think, called The Secret. A lot of people got a bit of publicity, and I believe partly in that. Although the bit for me that was missing from The Secret is the fact that you need to do a load of hard work. It worries me a little bit that people will read The Secret or watch The Secret and think, all I have to do is sit and meditate every day and think good thoughts and everything's going to come to me. You do have to work hard. So work hard is important. But I think if you genuinely give without expecting any in return, good things, surprisingly, the whole what's in it for me bit, that kind of happens anyway. And that's a risky strategy, particularly when you're starting out on your own with not much cash, and people will say, yeah, great, but I've got to pay the bills. And again, that's that balance between, what Gary Vaynerchuk calls the clouds and the dirt. It's the legacy. I want to go for legacy, but I've got to pay the bills and keep the walls from the door. And I'm 10 months in and it's working so far. So,
Good. Well, it's interesting. I think, what you're saying as well is definitely right in terms of it's how you view life. And, we, back at the lastminute.com days when we were there, we had an internal 2 words, which was the brand DNA, which sort of drove us. And it was all about fearless fun mongers, right? So we sold fun fearlessly, we talked about. And it was the point that if you looked out of the window of your hotel and it was onto a car park or whatever, not that, every hotel's like that or anything, but if it was, what you noticed was a dog chasing a cat or, someone's umbrella blown inside it. You were looking, it was in how you were viewing it, So I think it's, if you look for the positive, you'll get it, and
every time.
And just when you were saying about the universe will do good stuff, it's that old golfing quote, so it's attributed to many players, but I think it was maybe even Gary Player back in the day. It was just the harder I practice, the luckier I get. So I think I found starting this business and stuff, just say yes to everything you can. And even on Tuesday there, I was up in Birmingham doing a 2-hour speech for free, and it was, my whole day gone, and I could have been earning, but I made a promise to someone, and I like doing that stuff, and I just thought, I've got to go and do it, and I could have pulled out, I could have, because it was booked enough in advance, because I said, you know what, this isn't, but I think sometimes you've just got to suck it up and go, I'll do my work at night,
I think you do, and I think you do, and back on the business stuff, I mean, it's, there's another great golf quote, I think it was Jack Nicklaus that said, success is partly defined by, playing well on the bad days. Having a good bad day. So everyone can have good days. It's like when you work out in the gym, you have the good days where you're pumped, everything's great, but then you have the days where you don't really feel like it, and those are the victories, I think. And absolutely, I think giving. Listen, I have products and services that I sell, and I sell them to businesses and to people, and I believe, I give great value for that, and I believe that is, you deserve to be remunerated for that, which plays into the financial freedom bit, I guess. But when I'm going to sell something, I'll tell people I'm going to sell something, and this is it, and I'll ask, and if I write a book or release a workshop, and I'll ask people, hey, do you want to buy it? And they can either say yes or no. If they say no, it's fine, and we move on. You know, so it's I
think that's sensible. And then just in terms of the sort of taking the leap and all that sort of stuff. I mean, what advice would you give to people then? Because there's going to be so many people just going, I really want to do something else. And whether that's getting that dream job, or whether that's more work-life balance, or whether that's going out on their own, or whether it's, whatever it is, what are the first steps? What advice do you give to people?
Wow, that's a big question. The first thing is, I don't like giving advice, but I will always speak my truth.
Sure.
And but what I would say is knowing your purpose in life. Purpose is, as many people know, is my favourite word. And when you know your purpose, so I listening to you back there, just saying, say yes to things. I do believe in that. I absolutely say yes to opportunities. We'll figure it out later. But when you know your purpose, it makes your decision making on what to say yes to and what to say no to a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely.
And ultimately, you asked me about Smash the Box earlier. What is it? I described it as personal development business. It's also a story-based business. I love stories. People love stories. I love stories in life. I love stories in business. And there is an exercise. I mean, I take people through an exercise. It's one of the workshops I do, but which starts as, to your question, a gathering stories, and themes develop either from people's lives or the life of that business, and that gives clues as to what people really love doing.
Yeah.
There's a number of ways to approach it. One, there's something called ikigai, which is a slightly, I say, quick and dirty way to sort of get to that point. Ikigai is a Japanese word. It doesn't translate directly. In French, it would be your raison d'être, your reason for being. And if you remember those Venn diagrams at school where you draw concentric circles, if you imagine 3 concentric circles or converging circles, and I would encourage people to make a list of everything that they're passionate about and let your imagination run right. It might be, I enjoy listening to people, I enjoy talking to plants, I enjoy making pottery, whatever it is, whatever your thing is. Make a second list in the second circle, which is what are you good at? And then ask yourself, depending on your persuasion, where those meet, is there anything in there that I could get paid for?
Yeah. Because
if you can get paid for something that you're really passionate about, then you have a business, and you have a business that you love, and you'll probably never want to retire. There's a 4th circle, which I would add, and some people put this before the money, which is, what do you think the world needs more of? Now, in a pure business sense, that could be, what do you think the market needs? Is there a market for this? But in a pure life sense, what do you think the world needs more of? So I would say the world needs more people who more compassion, more people to help, more mentors, more leaders. So because I believe that, and then I think, well, what am I passionate about? Well, I'm passionate about helping people, inspiring people, and using my story to help inspire. And what am I good at? Well, I can speak and I can coach, and then suddenly I'm thinking, can I get paid for this? Oh yeah, I can. So going back to the start of 5 years ago, I was thinking, how'd you do this? I wouldn't have had a clue, but so I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does, and actually,
but purpose. Know your purpose.
Flying through my mind is you did this on me. When we met, we were up at Villandry.
Yeah, that's right. Great Portland Street.
Jamie Barber's old place. Yeah. And so we went in there, and you did it on me. And I just found it so useful, really useful. To sort of, because I guess, not talking about We're Spectacular too much, but just my purpose in that business, I suppose, is, to keep it moving forward and keep us ahead of, where the clients and the competitors are at, really, in terms of knowledge, not anything sinister. So, looking at that, and it really does make you draw some big conclusions. So maybe worth just recapping on that, because it's such a good point. So you're saying what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what you think you could make money from, and then no particular order, but then what you think the world needs more of.
I mean, because if you want to make money, then that becomes important. If you don't, if it's a side project or something you just want to immerse yourself in, I think there's three elements to it, and in terms of purpose. So there's an individual purpose. You know, what's as an individual moving through the world, what's your purpose? So which is probably where your question was sort of going. But purpose exists in business, and I think you know, when a business has a strong purpose, you know, and there's a lot talked about values in business. Probably what's not talked about enough is behaviours. You know, for me, what makes a great culture in business is when the values are being lived. And so it's one thing to say, here's a pretty picture with all our poster with all our values on it. We're great at communication, while you send an email to the person who's 5 yards away. You know, so behaviour is important, but with purpose exists in business. And when people, I believe, when people can align their own purpose in life with that of a business, that's when magic can happen. And if you're sometimes in a smaller business, that might be a bit easier. In bigger businesses, a team within that business can have its own purpose. You know, so if you work in IT or HR in a big corporation, so I don't know, Barclaycard are not probably going to change their values overnight, but if you work in it's like, how can we as a team, what's our purpose? How can we serve the greater purpose of the team? It's about serving something that's greater than yourself. And I think when you can give people, which is all right, a vision of something greater than themselves that they can contribute to, that matches their own values, boom, that's when you're away. I
actually did the Barclaycard values.
Did you?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I hope they haven't changed, because they were really good. That was, I don't know, 2000 and whenever the crash was.
Right, they shouldn't change them.
I don't think they should change them. It was a perfectly sound piece of work. Honest golf. So that, you know, I think you're absolutely right. Just thinking about, you know, your range of workshop, I think that's kind of quite interesting as well. So what sort of topics do you cover? You know,
I do a range of stuff. I guess if I could sum it up, there's three core workshops. So I guess there's a couple of aspects. So I speak. So I'm a speaker, and I go in and I will. Some people are looking for someone just to light a spark. You know, a little bit of a fresh injection from the outside, maybe, you know, or could be a team. The team's a bit flat, or they want that, and that's it. Might be all they want. So they say, we want to book a speaker, right? Come in. Thanks very much. You can go now. You know? I do believe
those are the best ones.
Bye. I do believe, however, and it is probably a bit naughty of me, but I don't believe in motivation. I believe motivation doesn't last. So I've seen it. And again, I be careful what I say here, but sometimes with speakers, too many times it's about them. You know, it's about the speaker, and the problem with that is that when 3 days after they've gone, everyone goes back to the desktop and they've forgotten about it. Inspiration, however, lasts a lifetime if you get it right. And I think if you can leave people and inspire people and give them tools and techniques and takeaways that stay with them, that think, hey, I can use that right now in my work or in my life. That's a shift in people, I think. So that's one thing I do.
Have you got like a flavour of what you cover in those then? Like what I don't want to give the magic away, but you know, is there a couple of snippets or
purpose? So I talk about finding your purpose or reconnecting with it if you kind of had it and lost it, or how you can realign your purpose or align it with that of your employer. So those workshops are typically for small to medium-sized businesses or teams within bigger businesses or individuals. So purpose is the first one. The second one is leadership for managers and for teams and for small, you know, typically I say small to medium-sized businesses. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but that's typically where I do a lot of my work right now. And with leadership, I take my angle on leadership is how it starts with leading yourself. So it's how to lead yourself and be the example, and looking at things like your rituals. And because I believe people, leadership, it's not about titles. It exists everywhere in life.
Yeah.
It's, I see it on reception desks, someone helping someone and saying, I'll do that for you. I think, oh, you're a leader.
Yeah.
And it's about looking after the person to the left of you, to the right of you, below you and above you sometimes. And leading yourself, I think people often follow the messenger before the message. So it's not always about standing up in meetings and talking loud and pointing and saying, you must do that. People will, if you want to win over the arms folded at the back of the room, I've seen this before, brigade, you need to be the example. And that means going to work on yourself. So that's the second one. And the third one is I do something called Power of Positivity, which is how, which again is a great strategy for any business and moving through life. Positivity all the way, who you surround yourself with. Yeah. If I had a hashtag, it would be don't complain.
Yeah.
Hashtag don't complain.
Stop whinging.
We live in a Western democracy.
Yeah.
There is choice.
Yeah.
You are actually choosing to be here. Yeah. If there is not an oppressive government checking your every. Well, let's not go there. It's
a whole other podcast.
If you have your health and you have your you have choice and you have whoever you have in your life, important people. What is there to complain about? There's so much opportunity.
Definitely.
See the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of good quotes. One of them that sticks in my mind about the see the opportunity was a great old boss that I had, and he said, "If there's a vacuum, fill it."
Right.
So if you see it, and actually I've just come off the back of doing some employee engagement sessions lately, and we talked about that in the session, and it was like, be positive. People's career progresses because they've went above and beyond.
Yeah.
And you go above and beyond by spotting that opportunity. So if there is, something broken in your business, you go and fix it. It doesn't matter if you're the cleaner or the CEO, And then just on CEOs as well, just leaders. So leaders everywhere. So there was a ridiculous, maybe being a bit harsh, but it seemed ridiculous to me. There was one of these LinkedIn posts, and it said, is all leadership the same, or is there one thing about, and it was like, no, how could, that there's no cookie cutter for being a leader, I don't think.
No.
But I had, fantastic few, CEOs, and obviously they were leaders at the top. Well, not obviously, some CEOs aren't leaders. But it was a guy called Ian McCaig at lastminute.com, big sort of Scottish guy, and sort of very big gravitas, if he's in a room, it, I hope he wouldn't mind me saying that. He's a real force of nature and for good. But we met him in the street, and he knows me a bit anyway, and he met Leo, who's my business partner, and you just saw him going through the Rolodex of his mind and going, "Hi, Leo," and you're thinking, he doesn't know Leo that well, but he knew him from old. "Oh, what age is," and he said the name of his child now. She must be about 13, 14, and you're just going, wow. And just having that in your mind to just go click, 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 boom. Yeah. That's I think that's a power in itself.
Yeah.
The making people feel good as well and feel noticed and that you care.
Yeah.
I think I was really rocking on my heels with that one. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's it. That is a fantastic example of great leadership. And I think, my coach gave me a quote he said with leadership. And he said, "Mark, it's not about you, but it's all about you." And it took me a while to get my head around that. But as in, when you go to work on yourself, you focus on yourself, you become an example. It's becoming the example. It's not telling people what to do.
Yeah.
It's inspiring them with hope. So they genuinely believe that the future will be a better place than the present. And that you can take people with you with that. And I think that's a great example. And it's just remembering little things, and the little things matter. Yeah. And I could talk all day about leadership. But it's... stuff like that is really, really important.
Sounds great. And I mean, how long do you talk? Is it like an hour each thing, or is it bespokeable? Or
it varies. I mean, I guess if someone asks me to come and give a talk, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah. And if I go to a school, it might be an assembly. So it could be 15 minutes,
Nice.
They get the condensed version and they get a slightly, they get the same value. There might be a slightly, it's a slightly different audience, but that's more about, the things, being fulfilled and successful in life and the things that you don't necessarily get taught at school, and so, the workshops vary. Most of the workshops I do are 1-day workshops. The purpose one can go over 2 days.
I need to do it. I think that would be brilliant to go and see in action.
It's incredible, the light bulbs that go off. You see people, because sometimes it's getting that perspective from so you can. It's coaching ultimately, because like I say, coaching's at the heart of it. It's about asking great questions.
Yeah.
It's about asking great questions.
Yeah.
So the whole Lead Yourself is teaching people to coach themselves, and. So we talked about going to the doctor earlier. You don't need a doctor around you all the time.
No.
People go to the doctor when they're ill.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a coach. I plug into him, online almost daily and he's around in my life. But so I do, whilst I believe that getting an injection of positivity in your day in whatever form, whether it's an audio, video, quote, is a good thing. When you can start coaching yourself and asking yourself great questions, that's when again you can start to become a leader. Because I don't believe it's innate. I believe you can learn how to be a great leader.
Yeah.
And and it's not about being extrovert. You look at Gandhi, you look at Mandela. They weren't necessarily. Extrovert is not a word that you would associate with them, but they were great leaders.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot to learn from them.
Definitely. Well, on that point then, you were talking earlier about wisdom and things like that. And you were just saying some really interesting things about it. So
wisdom, I just think there is so much wisdom out there. And we are blessed now with this thing called the internet, which means you can find pretty much anything for free if you want it and you've got the time and the patience. I do a daily broadcast through Facebook and weekdays, and a lot of what that's about is I spend an inordinate amount of my time researching. Sometimes ancient wisdom, but also both modern psychology, positive psychology. So some of it's 20 years old, some of it's 2,500 years old. You go back to the likes of Aristotle and the like, and there's so much wisdom there that you can apply to the modern day. And I'm always fascinated and curious about people who've had success. And success is a funny word because how do you define it? And it's different for different people. But fulfillment, people who are fulfilled and achieving things and think, how did they do that? How can I model that? Yeah. And like everything, it's a buffet. And you take it's like me, people aren't going to believe everything I say. But they might pick a little bit and go, oh, I like that bit. That resonates with me. And I like a little bit of what Mark McCulloch says, and I like a little bit of what Gary Vaynerchuk says, and I like a little bit, and they can put that together and then put their own. So wisdom, there is so much wisdom out there, and there is so much. Sometimes we can learn a lot from the past. So whilst I'm very future forward looking, as a person, naturally very optimistic, I think there's a lot we can learn from the past.
And what's your like an amazing catchphrase you were sort of talking about in your podcast?
Oh, that's a fun thing. I say, I do the research, so you get the wisdom.
Yeah, I think that's neat. Yeah, it's a t-shirt. A
t-shirt in the making, yeah.
Definitely.
I think there's definitely a t-shirt in that, yeah.
And then, so what type of companies are kind of approaching you and things, what's kind of going on there? Is it the more emotionally connected ones, or is it big corporates? Or
it's an interesting point. I mean, right now, unsurprisingly, I'm doing a lot with restaurant groups because that's the world I know. People listening to this who have heard of me before then will know me from that world. So I've done some great stuff with the likes of Polpo, the likes of there's a great little company called Laurel Canyon Ventures. Okay. So they've got Shea Bob's Cafe, doing some great stuff up in North London. I'm working with. I do some stuff with. There's a great business called Purple Cube that I I do some. I do some stuff and help them out as well, and well, we help each other, and that gets me into so this great company's got Lexington. Well, no, they're not called Lexington anymore, are they? Elior do some work there. So it's a real mix, and I don't draw a line anywhere and say this is my sector. I mean, because coaching you can apply. I think there's two things really. I guess on the coaching, you can coach anybody, and these workshops can apply to anybody. Mentoring, the difference between coaching and mentoring is mentoring you tend to give more advice. So coaching is all about the questions you ask to unlock. Mentoring you're kind of saying, I've been there, I've done it.
Yes.
So I can mentor if it's in a sector or an area. If it's like, so I used to work in sales. So it's like, we've got a sales team that we need some help with. Yeah, I can help with that.
Yes.
Or it's in restaurants. I can help with that. So I know what to say no to. But if a big corporate comes knocking, then...
Yeah, there's a free internet out there to learn,
I'm here, yeah.
And then also just in terms of yourself then, so anyone sort of listening that, isn't happy with life, isn't happy with work, isn't happy with relationships, isn't happy, what would you encourage them to do? What's the sort of first step for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. What would I encourage them to do? I would look at their environment. So again, back on the positivity theme, look at who's around you, who you're surrounding yourself with. And this is going to sound simple, but it's not easy. But add more positive people to your life, or your team, or and that. And I didn't come up with this idea, but if you're at school, if you're a student, that kid, that friend of a friend who's always smiling and the one who's always up and positive, think I'm gonna hang around that person a bit more. Or if you're in a company and there's the guy in marketing who you don't really know that well, but you bump into him in the kitchen, but he's always so positive and energetic. Take him for a cup of coffee, find out what makes him tick. Add more people to that in your life. Or you might have a friend, you might have your own friends, and now and again they bring along another friend who's not really your friend, it's their friend, and they're incredibly energetic, positive. Maybe you want to get to know that person. And I'm not saying ditch your friends, but you limit time. Limit your exposure to negative people and negative influences. And if that's in your family, that's hard. But and the other piece of advice I'd give people, having said I don't give advice, or invitation is, because there's so much advice out there, there's so much available, is find people who are doing successfully what you want to do. And follow them and copy them and kind of ignore the rest. Because you're going to get opinion, you're going to get advice. I had it when I started Smash the Box. And often it comes from a very warm place with the greatest of intention. It's like your grandmother giving you advice on how to, it's lovely, it's warm, it's interesting, but it's not necessarily relevant to what you're doing. And so just think about whoever's giving you that advice, thinking, are you doing what I want to do successfully? And if you're not, thanks very much. That's very interesting, and I might learn something from it, but I'm going to just store it under,
park that,
either delete it or so that's what
save it in the archive.
That
might be the thing. I mean, and there's a lot of chat, and you talked about Gary Vaynerchuk earlier on and stuff, and I think there's quite a few people like Gary, talking about this online, which is, auditing your inner circle. So, truly audit, he's even going as far as saying, ditch a loser friend today, and things like that. I mean, it's your choice. But, I think it is good advice because we've got a great friend down in Brighton, a guy called Sineth. He's a personal trainer, and he talks about, you're the average of the people you hang around with, so if all of a sudden you're more positive, more successful people, and that doesn't have to be money, but just people who feel more balanced and happy and fulfilled, and that definitely works, definitely.
The other thing just on that quickly, Mark, is, which is right up there, and this could easily have been my answer, is rituals. look at your rituals, particularly in the morning. And, I'm fascinated by what people do before, between when they wake up and 11 a.m. And, create your day, don't react to your day. And that is really hard these days with particularly social media and email, and we're so available and technology. But when you build strong rituals that serve you well, you are setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, it's a good piece of personal advice for me because, I'm just stuck to that phone at all times. And, I was reading a book lately called Why We Sleep.
Right.
And within that, it was about rituals. So it was set an alarm to go to sleep, which I thought was quite interesting. And then it was, it's all stuff people talk about, but they don't do. So 7 or 8 o'clock, lose the phone. Make sure you're getting 8 hours because there's not enough weekends in the world for you to catch up. But it's hard, right? You know what it's like yourself,
hard, yeah.
Because you're banking on 5 or 6 hours during the week when you're trying to, fight battles and whatever, fight fires. And then, so get it in the kitchen, get a charging station, put your phone on there, do all that. And, I managed to do it for a couple of weeks. I've been a bit rubbish lately. I've just been travelling a bit and stuff. But it really helped, genuinely helped, And the person that gave me the advice, I said, I'll get the audio book. And they're like, then you've got your phone. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I had to go back to like proper old school paper, and it's been quite fun reading it, actually. It's been really good.
It's really interesting. I mean, and I would never preach to anyone. Everyone's got their own thing. And like you say, there's things you can't control. Sometimes your work takes over but there's things you can. One of the things I'm mildly obsessed with, and I say this, I've just hit 50, is energy, having more energy.
Yeah.
So interestingly, whether it's 8 hours, I used to say to myself, I need 8 hours. And then I realised I don't. I need about 6.5, 7.
Interesting.
Because I've got more energy now than I had 5 years ago. And
what's that down to?
Well, again, I say this with all due respect, and I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not I'm not an authority on anything, but going into sort of looking after yourself, your diet, your nutrition, your how often you exercise, that sort of stuff does, I believe, have a massive impact. And I get by on less. I have more energy now, and actually, people always focus on. I get up very early, and people always talk about what time I get up, but they're not asking what time I go to bed. So it starts with going to bed early and getting that sleep. And for me, anyway, me, and it's whatever works. I would never say to anyone, do this or do that. It's some people, it's yoga, it's boot camp, it's reading, whatever it is. But finding something, and again, challenging yourself.
Yes.
So when you say, I got to have my 8 hours. Well, when did you decide that?
Yeah.
When you were 12 or when you were 24 or,
And it's interesting, as we're getting to this age, if you like, around, middle ages and stuff. But I had a great quote from Mick Jagger only yesterday, right? Just a friend was telling me. And he'd actually met him at a Rolling Stones gig. And he said, how do you do it? How do you? And he goes, I spent 50 years trying to kill myself. And I've spent 20 years trying to save myself.
Wow.
So, just Keith, on the other hand, is, still, there's apparently the best mobile bar you've ever seen in his dressing room and, and all the everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
But Mick was just like, yep, I caned it.
Yeah.
And now I'm sorting it. So it was like, I don't know if it was like that, but he seems to be still doing it really well and looking good on it.
Yeah, he does.
Sounding good, actually. I saw a video of the Olympic Park gig the other night. So, sounding street fighting, man. It was all good. It was all good.
Good to hear.
So then, while we're on this subject and maybe coming out of coaching and mentoring a little bit, we had a little word on spirituality earlier, which I was kind of fascinated by because, something you said brilliantly was, it's kind of like people's secret a bit. They maybe want to know about it or are into it, but they don't want to share and say about it. And, it's a bit taboo to talk about that. Yeah,
it can be, can't it? I mention it in my intro video on the website. I say this again with slight trepidation because I don't follow a particular faith. I believe what I believe, and that works for me.
What was your team though? Were you Plymouth or something? What was your team? What's your football team?
Oh, football team,
Yeah.
Plymouth. Yeah,
There you go. Yeah.
Plymouth
No,
Argyle,
that's
yeah.
a religion.
Yeah,
the
that's a
one.
religion. Yeah. I guess so. Yeah, I have that religion. Yeah, yeah. That's another journey.
A long journey.
A long journey. But I just think spirituality is an interesting subject, and like you say, it's a bit like talking about politics. They say don't talk about politics, religion, money. I'm about to launch a podcast series, which is all about, again, me bringing value. And you might go, so you might click on my website and think, oh no, I don't like him. I don't like his shirt, don't like his hair. But but I'm interested in the podcast. So you might want to.
But what a lovely voice.
What a lovely voice. Yeah. And you completely thrown me now. I just find that, no disrespect to anyone, but I think one of the most boring questions on the planet is, what do you do? I'm more interested in what you're passionate about. And it leads to a whole different conversation. So I can say to someone, what do you do? Well, I'm an accountant for a large restaurant group. Okay, well, great, but you're probably so much more than that. And when you ask people what they're passionate about, it can lead you to some really wonderful places. Yeah. And spirituality can come up. And I know I know a lady who I'm about to interview very, very soon for the podcast. And she describes herself as a sacred ritualist. And I said, well, you got my attention straight away with that. And what I've noticed about a lot of the people that I interview and come across is that they have, from all different walks of life, they have certain faiths and beliefs, and I find it fascinating. And one who you'll hear very shortly, Edin Basic, who I interviewed recently on the podcast, talks about his Buddhism and how Buddhism helps him. So when you ask him these questions about how do you do it and how do you get success, and he'll talk about that and his spirituality. And I think it's very important for a lot of people. So I think it's interesting.
Well, I think it's sort of depending on your ecosystem and your family and friends and support system, and I guess it's nice to think that you've got something to go to, whatever religion or belief system that is. But in your darkest moments or the hardest days, or your boss is giving you a hard time, or you've lost when you thought you were going to win, or whatever it is where you just want to go and cry, it gives you a certain amount of bulletproof vestness, to just be resilient. I think you're right. And for a lot of people, it's everything. It's the first thing. And it's this idea, isn't it, of something greater, serving something greater than yourself, whatever that is. So whatever your God is, or whoever. I just think, and a lot of very successful people, can't get my words out, successful people and people I watch, openly talk about their religion and the faith and the impact it has on them. So I think sometimes whilst it might be a bit taboo, for that reason alone, if it's important for those people and it works for them, let's talk about it and let's explore that and see what different people, but in a diverse way, so you get all flavours. Well, and I think the Christianity side of things stuff. I mean, it just has kind of went out of vogue, I guess. Which is a tough thing. And I saw yesterday, Church of England, I believe, where they've actually released an Alexa pack, so you can. But it was kind of interesting because the questions were, "Tell me more about the Church of England." It was like I think they've done a cool thing which is PRable, but I don't. It's kind of like people aren't going to talk to Alexa like that. I think they needed to come at it from a different angle. And years ago, I had the thought that I'd love the brief to save the Church of Scotland. Not that I'm particularly Christian or anything like that. But I just, it was kind of dear to me, that sort of dying out in terms of attendance. And also libraries. I wanted to do something to kind of save libraries. So it's sort of looking at that. I just thought years ago, why would you not have, catch-up sermons or, just kind of jazz them up a bit? And even at the royal wedding, you saw the difference. If you saw it, I don't know if you saw. But
I saw 20 minutes highlights.
Right.
I didn't watch it.
The American minister, I guess. I mean, it was a show. And you could see just all the British people just, cringing in their seats going, oh my God, not sure where to look, not sure what to do with this information. And then you could just see, the super boring British minister at the other side, just like, oh, how am I going to follow that? You know, but the guy was fabulous. It was very entertaining. So that was kind of cool.
I guess what you're talking about is marketing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
it's marketing. It's how, you know, like you said, why couldn't you get last Sunday's sermon on a podcast? Because you can't make it or whatever. And
get Gary V doing it.
Yeah, get Gary V doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
You should interview Michael Caine because he's passionate about saving libraries.
Actual Michael Caine?
Actual Michael Caine. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how you get him, but
I'm not sure he would come into this sweaty box. But yeah, has he still got his restaurant round the corner?
Do you know? I don't even know.
We can have a glasses off, a spec off, with other things like that.
Yeah.
I've got a crap impression. I could do that one.
So, I'm not going to try.
So yeah, I mean, and all just on a spirituality point, I'm really curious about it, and I'm really hopeful. We've got an old Buddhist master, Jai Siddhi, so I'm super hopeful to get him on the podcast as well, because he is quite rock and roll and fun and not what you would expect, you know. So if you're being judgmental, which you shouldn't be, but you know, people have got an image in their mind about what that might be like. So he's got some stories about his journey, and all that stuff. And then I guess you've talked a bit about, you know, Gary V and your coach and things like that. But you know, who's inspiring you? If it's all about inspiration,
who inspires me? A few people. I mean, my family inspire me.
Yes.
You know, my wife, my sons, they inspire me every day. I learn from them every day. There are people that, you know, just they're not well known, you know, that I come into contact with through my work in my life. I mean, I mentioned earlier I have a coach, a guy called Pete Cohen, who's had a big influence on me. He gave me a lot of belief initially, going back to day one. You know, you can do it.
Yeah. I
was 18 months ago in that sort of in that mode of like I'm going to do it, but I'm not quite ready. Yeah. You know, you're never ready. I've learned that. So he's had a big impact on me. More well known. Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk purely from an energy and just he inspires me as an individual. I've never met him personally. And Simon Sinek, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, who wrote a great book called Start With Why. Yeah. I think for anyone that likes TED Talks, I think his is the third most viewed TED Talk. Yeah. Start With Why. I find his material inspiring. Again, never met him, but I get a lot from him. And just that's. I don't follow many people actually. Yeah. But I can be inspired. I can get inspired by a lady helping. You know, somebody helping a lady or doing something for someone, and that can really inspire me. You know, I get inspired every day.
Well, funny enough, it sometimes is the small things, and we were just doing a employee engagement thing out in New York, and was on the plane and just kind of sitting with an Indian chap, and anyway, the drinks came out, and you know, you're just kind of in work mode, you're a bit knackered, and it was an overnight flight, and you're like, oh. And it just, and again, I was just really inspired and had this warmth of humanity to him, where he just tapped me as we got our drinks, and I had my headphones on, I was watching someone, tapped me, and he just gave me a wee cheers, and I just thought, oh, it just gave me, as the kids say, the feels.
Did you feel
but I was just like, that's. And then he pulls out a massive bag of cashew nuts, and he's like, taps me again, and he's like, help yourself, you know. And just the smallest things sometimes just either give you that warmth, connection, inspiration, shakes you out of that just deadly focused, numb sort of work mode, you know, to just wake up and go, oh, right, I'm in the moment, that was great. And also it made me then pay it forward as we were getting off the plane, like it made me kinder to let more people off and do all these things. So just it can be the smallest things sometimes.
Absolutely, it's great. That is great. And just I think there's a quote, isn't there? Is it Maya Angelou that said, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yes.
You know, and that guy made you feel a certain way, and that's what people remember. That's call it what you will. That's lead it into leadership. That's just how you make people feel. How you move through the world and how you make people feel, the impact you have on people. I always think, going back to purpose, what's your contribution to the world, and then what's the impact of that contribution?
Yeah.
That's Yeah.
Definitely. So a couple of final things then, because I'll need to let you shoot off. You're busy. A great thing you sort of said to me when we were out last time was just to keep moving me forward in terms of career, where things are going, just make sure you're maxing it, was you're 41 now, you're going to be 51 in 10 years. What if 51-year-old you was calling back to 41-year-old you? And, you hadn't maybe made some deviations and diversions that you might want. And it was just so powerful. And I've told so many people that, and for them, because I've had conversations with people lately where they are, stuck, or they're looking for the next thing, or, they're just kind of, and it's just, so thank you for that. It's just helped me, but it's also helped so many other people as well. And it's what would they say to you? Yeah. And they've done ultimately what you're wanting to, it's just great piece of advice, really great. So.
And I got that from my coach. So, again, it's that ripple effect of but well, it's a great, you
should have claimed it.
It's a great, it's a great example of, a powerful coaching question that you can use to unlock, because there are a lot of people who are stuck, whether they're in business or in life or both. And, again, you ask people, what do you want? And a lot of people find that really hard to answer that question. Yeah. They'll tell you, often they'll tell you what they don't want. Well, I don't want to feel like this. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. Okay, so what's the reverse of that?
To flip it.
What does, and like you say, a phone call from your future self telling you, do more of this, less of that. Yeah.
Will phones exist in 10 years' time? There's a whole bunch of questions.
Maybe it'll be Alexa.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So just in terms of final things then, so, if you had, not advice, but speaking your truth or helping people, what's the one thing that you would advise them to do tomorrow to get to where they really want to go?
To get to where they really want to go. I would get a piece of paper and write down, take a complete inventory of yourself and work out who you really are and where your strengths are. What are your strengths? What's the what are you passionate about? That's the one. If I had one question, I guess it would be, what are you really passionate about? What lights you up? What's that thing? It's got nothing to do with career now or money or anything like that. It's just what really, really lights you up, and it can be a feeling, or what's, if you can't come up with that, what feeling do you want? How do you want to feel in 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years? How do you want to feel? I want to feel like this. Right, okay. So now we're getting somewhere. So how can we get there? And again, going back to sort of, I'm all for looking forward, but sometimes people, going back to gathering the stories, when was a time in your life when you felt most alive? Yeah. When you really felt, you just had that, you were in flow, you were floating. Maybe it was in a work environment, maybe it was in your life, maybe it was back when you were at school. How can we get more of those moments happening in your life? And if I'm allowed a second one.
You are. You're allowed as many as you like.
I would just, and probably this is what runs through everything that I do and everything I say and all my work, is it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it. Yeah. If I'll make a prediction now for the next 10 years, opportunity mixed with difficulty. You've got to decide which one are you going to go for opportunity? You're going to look at the difficulty. Look at what we're surrounded by. We're looking at Brexit and economy and things moving up and down. There will always be opportunity, and there will be difficulty, and life gets in the way. But it's not, and I hope I'm a sort of living, breathing example of it's not what happens; it's how you respond. So
definitely,
that's what I'd say.
That's a great thing to end the podcast on. So thanks so much for coming in. Thanks for emitting that nuclear energy that you've got. Albeit we need some aircon in here because it's getting quite hot.
It's getting warm, isn't it? Yeah.
And I just need to get some images of that shot. That's okay.
It's done. Let's do it.
It's dazzling me.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, and best of luck with the new website and the new business.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Wow. That was just a brilliant hour of time to spend in Mark's company. And almost whether we were recording a podcast or not, I got so much out of that, and I really hope that you did too. So some key lessons from Mark was a bit screw it, just do it, and make sure that, you're always being honest with yourself. Are you speaking your truth? Are you doing what you're passionate about? Smashed with, are you doing what you're good at? And what impact might that have in the world? And if you can make some money out of that too, then even better. So do check Mark out. So Mark Pitcher at Smash the Box, and it's smashthebox.me. So do reach out to him and do get his help. Even if it's just for a coffee, I'm sure you'll be suitably inspired and you can do great things together. I also want to give a huge thanks to any of you that have listened, shared, subscribed, rated, reviewed, talked about, even passed on to a friend in the pub, the Spectacular Marketing Podcast. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to us. Without you listening, there's no point in doing the podcast, I guess. Also, a massive thank you to Gaz, Gabby and Mihal, the exec production team, for all of their hard work every single week for putting the podcast together. I'm Mark McCulloch, and this was spectacular.